In April 2020, Google offered anybody with a Google account, so anybody who's got an Android device, or has ever logged into Chrome, 2 free months of Google's Stadia Pro subscription. I thought nothing of it at the time, but I took my subscription and I would see how everything went. My mind was changed, and my mind was made up. After those 2 months, I was convinced that cloud gaming was the obvious future of the gaming industry. And even today, in January 2022, I wholeheartedly believe that comment. But I'm not entirely sure that the cloud gaming providers do. Welcome everybody, my name is Doragon, and this is my view on the state of cloud gaming in January 2022. In June of 2021, I put out a series of videos on different cloud services that were available. So I reviewed Stadia, I reviewed GeForce Now, did the same with XCloud and PlayStation Now. I gave a rankings list of some of the more commonly used cloud services, and I did bits and bobs on Stadia's improvement and launch on Android TVs. It was weird looking back at those videos before starting to record this, because a lot of my thoughts there still echo now. Like, yes, Stadia has great technology, but there's no games. And that's only got worse with another 6 months down the line. There's been one big profile release in FIFA 22, and it's not exactly performing well on Stadia. Outside of that, XCloud has improved its resolution, but it's got worse in terms of stability. I am disconnecting from games on a regular basis, and I'm getting like VHS rolling whilst I'm trying to do it. GeForce Now has added a new tier where you can get a 3090, but that only gives you 1440p visuals whilst you get 120 frames per second, which is great, but I don't have £90 every 6 months to spend on a service that doesn't come with any games. All the while, PlayStation Now has just been plodding along, doing what it's been doing for the last 7 years, and adding a few more games to the service per month. Granted, some of those have been PlayStation 5 games, which is great if you've got that console, but if you don't, it's doing what it's always done. This is where my concern with the current cloud gaming providers currently lies. We have got what I would call 4 main ones here in the UK, because Amazon haven't launched Luna outside of the US yet. I don't know what they're playing at. If they want to be a major player in the market, they need to step up that global rollout, but that's a story for a different video. Here in the UK, I can access Google Stadia, I can access PlayStation's Now streaming service, I can access XCloud, and I can access GeForce Now. Now, there are a couple of other remote applications that I can use, the likes of Remote Play, for example, where I can play the games that are already on my console, the likes of, what are they called? Basically, they're PCs, remote PCs that you access and you play your games through them. They just display on a screen that you already have. I don't class those particular ones as cloud gaming services. And I would put GeForce Now in that particular section, for the simple reason it gives you remote access to these graphics cards, these rig setups that are meant to just be better than what you currently own. For someone like me who doesn't own a PC, GeForce Now isn't a cloud gaming service. It is a very expensive entry-level option, and it's just not worth the outlay to me when that £90 every 6 months could go, I don't know, on food shopping with the increased price of living at the moment. So that leaves me personally with three main options: PlayStation Now, Google Stadia, and XCloud. And honestly, none of them are doing anything that I can shout about to convince my friends that this is the way to the future. Now, I do still believe that statement. Cloud gaming is the future of the gaming industry. But no one is stepping up to the plate to prove that to the naysayers. There has never been a positive article written about Google Stadia unless it's by Google Stadia fans. There are lots of positive things that Stadia does correctly. The general streaming vision of what they want to achieve, the fact it's a free any generation console, that the games will be upgraded as the hardware upgrades. Absolutely amazing vision. But we're 4 years into Google Stadia in 2022. And in those 4 years, nothing's changed. The games that were on the service at the very start that ran at 4K and at 60 frames per second in HDR still run at 4K at 60 frames a second in HDR. Now I know, most consumers out there still don't have 4K screens. So let's not bother bumping the resolution up to that mighty 8K that we're starting to see some manufacturers bring televisions and monitors out for. HDR, again, one of those technologies that so many people don't have. You look at stats to say how many people are playing games in HDR, and it's not many. It's maybe 10 to 12% of all gamers are using HDR content. Okay, so no point in proving that. But what about ray tracing, Google? Ray tracing is a lighting technology that depends on the hardware that the game is being run on. With cloud streaming, the hardware is on the server side, it's on the provider's side. In 4 years, you've not been able to implement ray tracing. GeForce Now has managed that on just their Pro subscription at $8.99 per month. That would be a big step forward. But probably more importantly, especially for the type of games that Google are trying to get on board, would be frame rates. Yes, the brand new consoles, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S, can run at 60 frames per second and 4K most of the time. But if you lower that resolution on all of those, your Xbox can go to 1440p and run at 120 frames per second. Okay, you need a HDMI 2.1 display, but the hardware is capable of it. The hardware that I'm recording this video on right now has a 120 Hz screen. That means it can display 120 frames per second. But Google Stadia can't. That's made worse with XCloud. XCloud only displays at 1080p max, and that's only been a 3 or 4 month thing since they brought Series X blades into their servers. But there's no HDR there, there's no ray tracing there, there's no super sampling to increase your resolution or anything, there's nothing to make that game look or play better. Things like Halo Infinite are locked at 60 frames per second, as is Forza Horizon 5, as is every other game on the service that isn't a 30 frame per second game from years ago. I like what these services do. I like the games that they offer me. But things aren't evolving. You have XCloud out there right now shouting about having over 150 games and having 1080p visuals. The last time I heard that claim was the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. That is how they tried to market and sell those consoles, because they were horrifically expensive and had no games. Both of them, for years, had nothing that would actually sell them. And I've now got cloud gaming services doing the exact same thing. We then need to talk about the stability of these services. Like Google, I could take out of the equation. I've literally never had an issue with Google Stadia unless my internet has been down. And that's going to be the same for any cloud service that you use. But XCloud? XCloud will disconnect whilst I'm connected to 550 megabit per second broadband. It will disconnect on an Ethernet cable connected. with an 8 millisecond ping and a 40 megabit per second up speed as well. There's no way XCloud should be struggling with such a connection. Yet, I've got it on streams, I've got it recorded for review videos, where the game just stops working. The whole service stops working. But if I jump over to, say, Stadia or PlayStation Now at exactly the same time, they're working perfectly. Microsoft aren't exactly a small company here. They're one of the biggest software developers on the planet. They make more money in a minute than I will see in my lifetime. Sort it out, Microsoft, please. And PlayStation Now? PlayStation Now is a very smooth experience. My problem is that experience is exactly the same as my console experience. I have to play it on my PlayStation console because I don't have a PC. And if I did have a PC, that's not exactly leaving my house often, is it? I can't take that on the bus with me and play PlayStation games on the go, because even remote play, which allows me to access my own PlayStation console wherever I am, won't work on mobile data. But if I tether, it'll work. If cloud gaming advances, it will be the future of this industry. I'm starting to believe that the 9th generation of home consoles are the last ones that we will see. Because as they come to the end of their physical lifespan, we will start to see cloud services being added to them to allow better and more fidelity to be inputted into games. And you'll just end up streaming everything. It works perfectly for video now. There were naysayers of that technology right at the start of it when we had, here in the UK, the likes of Love Film, Prime Home Video and Netflix starting up. They had to go twofold. And so many people for years still just took DVDs posted through the door. Whereas now, I don't think I've bought a DVD in, 6, 7 years? But the reason the video streaming services took off, the reason that they were successful, is that the companies pushed the technology forward. They pushed the benefits forward. They made it accessible on any particular device. They made it readily available on any form of internet connection. They made it scalable to your internet connection, so you could have anything from standard definition 480p all the way up to currently 8K video. And when you consider that, 3% of all homes have an 8K display, they're pushing for the future. The video game streaming providers, as far as I can see right now, aren't pushing for the future. They're settling on the past. These services were great when they launched. Stadia offered so much over the home console generation that was around at that time. It offered the higher frame rates, it offered better quality visuals on more screens in more locations. It offered HDR content, which for most people was only available on their mobile phones. And, you could play the games on your mobile phones and you didn't even need a controller. But in 4 years, everything else has gone forward. And Stadia has stayed the same. XCloud has been in beta for 5 years now? And they've upped the visuals to 1080p from 640. That's it in 5 years. Okay, they've added it to more devices. You can now access it on your Xbox console. Superb. It means your Series X and your One can do the same thing. They've added it to Android devices, iOS devices, browsers, all sorts of hardware on the laptop and computer side of things. But they've brought the same service everywhere. Where's the advancement? Where's the pushing forward for the industry? Where are Microsoft and Google saying, come use our service? Where is PlayStation? You know, Sony, the guys with the best exclusive games out there. Why aren't they yelling about this and allowing people to play these games wherever they can? Look, there's many questions over cloud gaming, and right now, none of the providers are doing themselves or us, the customers, justice. I want to see more. I want cloud gaming to advance. I want to get rid of hardware that is just surplus to requirement. But with how they're not evolving, how they're not advancing right now, they're making me question whether or not I need to buy a PC. Just so that I can do everything that 4 years ago they promised me I could. I would like to thank you all very much for tuning in. This video has been a little bit of a rant, and I feel it's one that's needed to put some pressure on the cloud gaming service providers so we actually get some advancement within the industry. But I was prompted to make it by an article that I saw whose headline basically perfectly summed up everything I'm feeling right now. That headline was, in 2022, I'm ready for cloud gaming, but Stadia and Co are not. And it really encapsulated how I'm feeling. We've seen so much advancement with PCs, new graphics cards, more efficient graphics, ray tracing. We have seen so much advancement in terms of loading times and frame rates on home consoles that for all of these cloud services that are meant to be able to match or even beat these pieces of hardware, to be lagging behind them and not have updated things in 4, 5 or 7 years really, is very disappointing to see. Now, don't get me wrong, they all work, they all have their pros, and all of the positives that I mentioned about these cloud gaming services in my reviews from June 2021 are still there. But the negatives are starting to grow and knock on the door with a little bit more force. The negatives of not advancing the technology, of not adding enough games, of adding 0 games, depending who you are, is starting to really hurt all of these services. They're all asking for premium subscription services, and none of them are offering a premium experience right now. They all have aspects depending which one you go for. Microsoft have the games, PlayStation have the great service, great games, limited hardware accessibility. Stadia has the best streaming service by far, distinct lack of games and advancement in the 4 years it's been live. And GeForce Now, as I said earlier in this video, isn't suited to people like me. Cloud gaming is a positive thing, but cloud gaming also needs to put in the work to stay relevant. And in 2022, I personally feel that all of the providers of cloud gaming services right now need to be putting in the work. They need to be showing that they're putting in the work, even if it's just promises of things coming in 2023. Because if we don't see that, if we don't see advancement, if we don't see work being put in to improve the experience, to improve the gaming selection, or whatever else may need improving within these services, I'm pretty sure we're going to see casualties within the cloud gaming sphere in 2022. And I fear it might be some of the best ones that become those casualties. I'd like to thank you all once again for tuning in. It's always a pleasure having you along. Let me know your thoughts about this particular topic in the comments section below. It's a tough one to address, because those of us who love cloud gaming want to defend it to the hilt. But when it's getting to the point when we're having to call it out, when we can't defend it, that's when I start to feel that maybe some pressure needs to be put on the providers to give us something more. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Don't forget to do all of the usual YouTube things. You can hit that like button, slap subscribe and the bell next to it for notifications of when new comments go live. There are links in the description box below to previous videos, on all of the cloud services, along with my socials. You can share this video with those who you think it would be something for them to watch, view, comment on, or whatever the case may be. But otherwise, guys, as always, your viewership is more than enough for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, my name is Doragon. These have been my thoughts on cloud gaming in January 2022. And until next time, have yourselves a fantastic day and take care. Stadia and Co aren't. And it's sort of summed up just in that title exactly how I feel about this area of the industry right now. I want this to... I kid you not. No, that's going to be some nice outtakes at the end, isn't it?